So it looks like Sega is trying to come back in a very big way by reviving their older IPs. I'm talking Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, and Crazy Taxi. And for the most part, Crazy Taxi is supposed to be a reboot. The upcoming game is supposed to be getting as a reboot. We have no idea when it's coming out. We have no idea what platforms it's going to be on. But I can imagine it being on PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and it would have to be on PC at this point because there are more PC gamers than ever. But we do know that Crazy Taxi Reboot is supposed to be a open world, massive multiplayer AAA game, and and honestly, it's interesting that Sega has decided to go down this route because I feel like this is something that Sega should have did like over a decade ago with Crazy Taxi to try and revive it instead of basically keeping the same basic arcade style, gameplay and it becoming more relevant with each installment. And I think like one of the last major installments that came out, if I'm not mistaken, was Crazy Taxi 3 High Roller. That game came out back in 2002. And that's one of the last major ones I know of. I mean, there may have been some that came out afterwards, but it seemed like after like the late 90s, early 2000s, the Crazy Taxi series just became irrelevant, mainly because the landscape of gaming had changed for the most part and people started turning to shooters and action adventure games and RPGs and MMORPGs and all that stuff during the course of the 2000s and the teens decade. But obviously, this is supposed to be like a reboot to the series. It's going to be more realistic. It's most likely going to be more, interactive and immersive for the most part. And I do feel like that is something that's going to make Crazy Taxi more interesting than it was back in the day. And for the most part, like the challenge of any older IP and trying to reboot it in this day and age is trying to modernize it because you can't take stuff that worked in the past and apply it to the present and for the most part expect it to be as popular as it was back in the day unless you're Nintendo and you're doing the Super Mario series, and even then that had to go 3D and Nintendo had to keep turning it up a notch in terms of quality and all that stuff when they delivered. Sega for the most part don't really have too many high profile IPs that no one that people know of, with the exception of Sonic the Hedgehog. And Sonic the Hedgehog, for the most part, has been getting more mainstream attention now than he's ever have for the most part outside of the 90s. And that's actually a pretty good thing. Streets of Rage actually got some mainstream attention a couple of years ago when Streets of Rage 4 came out back in 2020, but that was published by another video game company. I don't think it was published by Sega for the most part. And and honestly, I've been waiting for Streets of Rage 5 for quite some time, and I guess this is Sega's going to do that in the future because they're supposed to be making a Streets of Rage game and releasing it sometime in the future. But a lot of Sega's IPs, we have no idea when they're going to be coming out. We do know that Sega had announced they were working on a super game project, and I'm not exactly sure if the IPs are rebooting are a part of that super game project. I don't know if they're going to come out with their own subscription service. I really have no idea about all those things, but the Crazy Taxi reboot sounds very interesting thus far, and I do feel like making it open world and a massive multiplayer game is something that's going to add to its level of appeal. And it's something that's going to attract modern gamers. And it's probably going to bring back lapsed fans of the Crazy Taxi series or people who loved it, back in the day for the most part. They'll check it out just to see how different it is, whether or not Sega has improved the quality of Crazy Taxi, whether or not they're in touch with what people want to see in video games and all that stuff. As long as there's like no microtransactions or anything like that, I think it's okay. Will it break over 1 mil, 2 mil? I have no idea. I feel the nostalgia would be enough for it to break 1 mil, and if promote it the right way, it could be like it could be like a moderate commercial success for the most part. It's something that could definitely bring in revenue for Sega and possibly put the Crazy Taxi series back on the map. Because as far as high profile racing games are concerned, there are not too many that I know of right now that like people really care that much about outside of the Forza series. And I say that because latest Gran Turismo game was kind of just whatever to a lot of people. And what I mean by that, people were pissed off by the microtransactions and all that stuff. And I do feel that having Crazy Taxi on a console like the Switch 2 is something that would be very helpful because Nintendo hasn't come out with Mario Kart 9 just yet. And if Crazy Taxi Reboot appeared on the Switch 2 before Mario Kart 9 came out, it could actually stand out for the most part because Nintendo's still living off of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the most part, and that's for the Switch console. They're about to switch over to their next generation game system, so we're just gonna have to see what Sega does with the Crazy Taxi series, whether or not more details are going to be revealed about it. We have to find out when the release date's going to be, what platforms it's going to be on, and whether or not Sega plans on making more entries after they release the upcoming Crazy Taxi reboot in the future.